All right, guys. Thank you guys very much for joining, and I'm going to now turn it over to our moderator, Melissa.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world today. Thank you for being here with us. I'm really excited to be today's moderator on a topic very near and dear to my heart, but very near and dear to many of us, I believe, in the world, especially with so much going on personally in our backyards, civically, anything you can imagine. So thank you for being here. We're excited to have an open conversation with the experts today. So on behalf of the Black Alumni Society, I'd like to send a special thank you to Moffitt Cancer Center for creating this sponsorship and partnership so that we can create the My Health series. So as Erica mentioned, today we are talking mental health. And we have the experts and professionals with us. So we have Dr. Ruben Falugi, who is a therapist and psychologist with the USF Counseling Center, as well as Justin McLean, who is a therapist at Home Again Counseling. So thank you to the two gentlemen. And we're kind of going to go with an open forum. So submit your questions, ask away. The doctors are in, we are in session. So please message through chat, whatever it is, so we can hear from our wonderful professionals that I've had the pleasure to have panels with prior. So welcome, gentlemen. Oh, I think you're both on mute.
Hey, everybody.
There it is.
Good afternoon.
Good. So we're just going to go ahead and jump in. I'm sure people are getting settled with the series, but we'll just go ahead with one of the questions we have. So if you could please explain or provide differences of anxiety and panic attacks.
I guess I'll go first, Ruben. I guess the way I would describe it is just the level of intensity, because anxiety is actually a normal emotion. You know, it's used for survival. So we need anxiety, a level of anxiety to survive, and it also gives us some motivation in doing things. The question I ask when people first come to me is when they may say, all right, I struggle with anxiety. And then I ask, so how? What does it look like? And if they describe something that escalates to the level of a panic attack, then I would say a panic attack is something that freezes you in spot or paralyzes you and prevents you from doing something that you really want to do. So the biggest difference is the level of intensity.
Everything Justin said was spot on. I talk about anxiety as a clinical anxiety as an illness of your attention being stuck in the future. And I think sometimes when our attention is so locked into the future, usually on things that we can't control, and it starts to become to a level where we can't regulate ourselves, our body panics because we're in that fight or flight. Our nervous system is in that fight or flight zone. And so, this even can happen during sessions. And so what people should look into doing when they recognize that they have either anxiety or panic attack, but panic attack seems to be more immediate, is grounding themselves. So, really using the breath. There's a variety of different ways to ground, but the breath physiologically, it gives your body more of the tools that it needs, oxygen, to function better and to ground.
Awesome, thank you. Let me see, and just a reminder for those of you participating on the call, we have quite a few folks on, so don't be shy from asking away. But the concept of the mask, I know we've spoken about this in prior sessions, but the real on what is this pandemic has on a person's state of mind.
Ruben, do you want to go with what the mask is? Telling folks what the mask is?
Well, that's what actually was, I was going to clarify, like when we talk about the mask, because I think of the mask like personality, I think of the mask as us covering up how we really feel. Like, how are we talking about the mask, just so we're on the same page?
Probably in the context of whatever, the mask of helping you
Oh, I
feel.
remember.
That's where, yeah.
Because I remember I said that. Put your mask on first.
There it is.
Sometimes I forget some of the things I said. Yeah, hella funny. So the mask. Last time we did a panel, I talked about the mask being a metaphor for self-care. You know, everybody's familiar with the N95s and the cloth masks and the bandanas. But, you know, one thing we lose sight of is taking care of self, you know, and so the metaphor comes from flight attendants when they're doing their safety thing in the beginning of the flights, where they're like, if the cabin depressurizes or there's an emergency, oxygen masks will fall, and they ask you to put your mask on first before anybody else. And the idea is if you can care for yourself first, not only do you survive, but you can help people around you. And if you do the opposite, where you try to put someone else's mask on first, you risk losing your life and or needing the support of someone else. So more resources. In the case of the pandemic, I mean, that's the message for all the time, but especially when we're under stress, distress, really going back to taking care of those basic needs. Are you drinking water? Are you eating? Are you sleeping? You know, are you taking care of your body? Are you taking care of those immediate basic needs before we start thinking about the next thing? And it's hard, especially for the most marginalized folks, but it's even more important for the most marginalized folks to focus on those basic needs. So I'll kind of leave it there. Maybe Justin might inspire me saying something else.
I think the other important thing, Ruben, and of course I agree with everything that you just said, to just, when you put on that mask, just to realize it doesn't have to be huge. You know, it doesn't have to be, hey, got to go on vacation for the whole day or a couple of weeks. It could be just like 15 minutes here or there. It could be something like, hey, I'm going to go for a walk. Like something I personally do on my when I'm in my office, it's by a lake. So I take 15 minutes to walk around the lake without my cell phone, without things, and just to clear my head. So figure out what that is for you. What's that 15-minute, that healthy 15 minutes for you, for self-care? And that could be reading a book. That could be a lot of different things.
Absolutely. We had a question come through. Someone's asking, they are feeling very anxious. What are some steps they could take to minimize this feeling?
So I'm going to use like and I think, Ruben, you used to play football, I think, if I remember correctly. So I'm going to use this as sports analogy. So let's say you have the Georgia Bulldogs hat on. So Georgia's playing UF, right? So in order for Georgia to prep for UF, they're going to watch film and practice and game plan for the game. If they don't do that, they're going to get destroyed. The same thing with anxiety. I would argue, and I would love to hear your thoughts, Ruben. I would say 80% of the time we can predict the things that make us anxious. So I always encourage my clients to game plan for those when those things happen. And in the therapy world, we call those triggers. So just coming up with a game plan for folks when those things arise.
Yeah, I love the metaphor too. Knowing your triggers is helpful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I know certain types of clients, when I see them, I'm going to get anxious. You know, clients who are thinking about killing themselves, my anxiety goes up. And so knowing it is half the battle, but then once it's there, what do you do with it? Like I've learned, and it's a skill, not to run from my anxiety, because my anxiety is letting me know something. Like Justin was saying earlier, if we didn't have anxiety, we'd be dead because we wouldn't protect ourselves. But the thing with anxiety is there's perceived threat and there's actual threat. And so I think cognitively parsing that apart, like, is the thing I'm afraid of really going to kill me right now? And many times it's no. And of course, in that instance with me, with these clients, yes, there's a legal component. Like I don't want my clients killing themselves on my watch in general either, but on my watch. So that lets me know I need to take certain steps to navigate this process effectively. So that's one way. There's cognitive, there's a lot of different ways. It depends on how your anxiety manifests. Is it cognitive? Is it somatic in your body? Are you noticing tension? You know, is it emotional? And so I think depending on what it is, it might need a different tool. So there's a variety of tools, and I tell folks you should have a toolbox. Breathing's one in my toolbox. They call one 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, where you go through your 5 senses and you start labeling things in the present, which again brings your attention with anxiety from the future to the present. So yeah, those are some things. Like if you type in anxiety grounding techniques, you'll get some different techniques. And if you struggle with those on your own, reach out to a professional.
Good point.
Yeah.
Let me see. Let me cross through the questions coming through. So in the sense of dealing with imposter syndrome, how would you guys say you work through this?
So just, I guess, defining imposter syndrome, you know, as someone like when someone doubts their accomplishments or talents, when they think they're a fraud. Part of me like doesn't like the word syndrome, just because it implies it's like a disease or something, and only a select amount of people like get it. And I think a lot of people experience imposter syndrome. I think it's more normal than we lead on and talk about. So with a imposter syndrome, I think the biggest thing we can do is, like kind of Ruben hinted at before, is ask ourselves, is this really real? You know, and see what evidence there is against what we're saying in our head. Like, for example, like when I was at, I have imposter syndrome from time to time, you know, because there'll be in circles, and I think Ruben could say this too, like in grad school, or I serve on some boards of some community organizations. I'm the only person in that room that looks like me. So then I start questioning myself, like, oh man, you know, do I belong? Am I here? You know, they're going to figure out that I'm a fake, blah, blah, blah. But then I have to take a step back and do that self-talk, and it's like, hey, I'm here for a reason. You know, I got into grad school, I've done this, you know, and then if there's a time for, like, if I'm very uncertain, ask for feedback. Like I ask for feedback, you know, and just being vulnerable enough to ask for that feedback.
Yeah, everything Justin said, I just want to throw out there, you know, I experience imposter syndrome is a human-like thing. I think one thing I want to throw in the pot though is explore the thought, like, why don't you feel like you belong? Because the times I felt imposter syndrome, I was in predominantly white environments and they were unwelcoming in many instances. So it wasn't me going crazy or this syndrome. I was around white folks who didn't understand me. And so I had to validate where this was coming from. Like, yeah, it was hard as hell to get in grad school. That didn't make me feel like I belonged. Yeah, these people don't understand how I act and are calling me names that don't align with what I like. That makes me feel like an imposter. So those are very valid thoughts and feelings. And I know I went there for a purpose, and it was to get a PhD. I know I went to UGA for a purpose, and it was to play football at a high level and to be a high achieving student. And so when you know yourself, nobody can tell you who you are. And so, but that's hard. So what you got to do is you got to start affirming yourself. You got to start figuring out who you are, journaling, doing whatever you got to do, go to therapy. And I like what Justin was saying, get support, you know, find people who you can trust, who can give you honest feedback to let you know where you stand and where you fit, kind of.
That's really great advice, because I got to say, even personally thinking through some experiences I've had, I work in a very corporate environment, and I walk into rooms and I'm in a role of leadership. No one looks like me. No one's even the same gender as I am. So that's really great information you're sharing there. So I'm looking at a question that just came through. As a Black man in this climate, dealing with the double of pandemic COVID-19, along with social injustices, as well as you both working to heal others, how do you brothers take care of yourselves?
Who said that? Blessing.
Yeah.
Thank you for the mindfulness. Justin, I don't know who wants to ever go first, so I just be waiting.
I'll let you go this one. Yeah, take this one.
Thank you so much. Really great question, because, and I'm very open with my coworkers about this, like my emotional capacity is very different than it was a year ago when they first met me. Because first and foremost, I am a human walking around with a soul, you know, before I'm a psychologist, before I'm an educator, before I'm any of the things I do. And so because I help people, I've learned that it's vital. Like if I want to be effective as a helper, it's vital to take care of me. And that's what the whole mask thing was about. You know, like if I don't take care of myself, I don't begin to have the capacity to help others. So, and it shifts. Like the things that help me one day don't always help me other days. So again, I have a toolbox of different activities that enrich me in the 4 domains of my life. So I think of intellectually, my mind; emotionally, my heart; physically, my bodysuit; spiritually, me as a spirit in a body bag. So things that come to mind is I play music. So I love playing guitar. At the end of every night, I'm playing one of my guitars. It's a very, very beautiful thing. Let's see, intellectually, I love reading. I have books everywhere, and that stimulates me cognitively. Sometimes it takes me away from what the work I'm doing, diversity, social justice work. Sometimes it's helping to enrich me, and that uplifts me. That makes me feel good. Sometimes reading about Black liberation isn't helpful. Sometimes it is. So again, it changes and shifts. Physically, I know if I don't go to the gym at least 3 to 4 times a week, I am not going to be a happy person. I'm not going to be a nice coworker. I'm going to be snapping on people. I'm be irritable. So I got to channel that emotion in a different way. And spiritually, I meditate, and I ground myself in my purpose every day. And if I need to do it every moment, I'll do it too. But you see how I have something in every one of these domains. So that's the task for other folks. Figure out what helps and what doesn't help.
I love it. And I do similar things, but I think my biggest thing is I'm so involved, and Ruben and I are helpers. So we want to help folks. So it's important to know your limits. The most important thing for my self-care is I learned how to say no, you know, and how to honor my schedule, right? Like, because I would get these community opportunities and all this stuff, and I just had to say no, you know, and figure out, you know, what is the real cup filling things for me, you know, and that's spending time with my wife. That's, you know, exercising, that's different thing, like some creative outlets that I have. And on the surface level things that I do, I actually purchased a basketball hoop a month ago that I put up, and I just shoot baskets between my sessions. I just go outside and just shoot. And it's like for 10, 15 minutes. And I do that throughout the day, and it's worked wonders for me. And with the creative thing that Ruben said, I'm really into cooking. So I cook, you know, and one of the big things I do is outside, like I grill and I smoke foods and things like that. So that's something that I do, and I really just honoring my time alone and things like that. So.
Oh, I love some of those things. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm thinking through, because I've recently started a new job, and they slammed me with like back-to-back meetings, and that power of no and owning it. Yeah. I'm like, listen, you're not going to get a happy Melissa participating if I haven't worked out, if I haven't eaten. Like, I need that moment. So I love that you can
and the way I put that is, if you say yes to doing all the extra work, what are you saying no to? You know? So yeah, exactly. So.
Love it. Love it. All right, cool. We're getting some more questions trickling in. So let me scroll up. So how do I convince my partner to seek the help they need? They're having a hard time with all of the all the killings that we continue to see in the media.
I'm not laughing at the question. I'm laughing at Justin's reaction, because it was similar to mine. Like, it's like you know, So I guess since I'm talking, I'll keep talking.
Yeah.
I think it's beautiful that there's concern about somebody you care about.
Mhm.
And as a helper, I've had to learn this. But if somebody, stages of change, readiness to change, Prochaska's stages of change model, check it out. Prochaska's stages of change. If somebody is not ready to go, there's nothing there's little you can do to make them go. Actually, there's nothing you can do to make them go. There are some things you can do to influence somebody. So if you connect what you're noticing to a problem and you're able to give information that helps somebody understand why there's a problem and generates their own motivation to address the problem, then you're good. But if somebody's hard set on not going to therapy or not receiving help generally or not going to the doctor, you have to create an environment where they can get to that place on their own. So it's tough when you're in a relationship, especially when you might be experiencing the side effects of folks who are untreated or who are going through things and not getting the appropriate support. But I guess the best thing I can say would be to share those concerns with your partner and see where that goes. See if they're open, see if they're closed, and I think from there you'll have some more data to decide what you do. You leave it alone. Do you provide more information? Yeah, that's what's coming to mind for me now.
And I 100% agree with Ruben. Like you can't force somebody to change when they're not ready. I think because I'm kind of analytical, I love the data points. So I would go to asking the question of, does your partner want to, or do they know how to? Because it might be like they might want to, but not know how to. Because I get folks all the time come to me like, hey, I think I want to talk to somebody, but how do I do it? Because a lot of people don't know how to do it. So answering that question too, I think would help and add to that data to make the decision.
Definitely good points. There's them recognizing and, like you said, finding the resources, and can go down a tricky slope there. Very good. So another question through the Q&A. Can you speak on the embarrassment or kind of this, stigma of going through a therapist or seeking treatment?
Yeah. Can you repeat that one more?
Yeah, absolutely. If you could please speak on the embarrassment or the stigma of embarrassment, because it's not embarrassing at all. Speak on potential embarrassment of seeing a therapist and going through treatment.
So I hope I answer the person's question, but something like this, the mode of how we're doing therapy may help also, because I get folks that were sometimes embarrassed to go into an office setting or be seen doing a therapy session. But right now, COVID has opened it up for folks, like 95% of my sessions are done this way. So you could do it from the comfort of your own home. So that might ease the stigma or the embarrassment of seeking help.
Yeah. I think it's also asking about like if others, maybe family members, were to find out, or, friends, just because there's all those stigmas attached to it.
Yeah, I would encourage this person to really explore the origins of where that emotion comes from, like where the thoughts what thoughts are connected to the emotion. Is it because, Black Latino folks were supposed to be strong, machismo, and not get help, or we need to do it on our own, or we got this, we're hard. Right. These are all messages I've heard, messages I've told myself at different times. Religion, different faiths have messages from different faiths can be misconstrued to say that we don't need help here in this earthly realm. That's messages I got growing up in the Southern Baptist Catholic churches. Class, that's for rich folks. We don't need that, or we can't afford it. Which is in some instances true, not always true. And so I think these messages create the feeling of embarrassment and the stigma. And so if we can get to the root of those messages, like racism, white supremacy, you know, they used to label slaves as strong and impenetrable, no emotions, you know, and that's where this whole idea of strong Black man came from. Like, so that is not serving our community because we need the support the most, and we underutilize the service. And so I think really getting down to the root of where did those messages come from? Did it come from a system of oppression or love for myself and people who look like me? And then what do you want to do with that message? Do you want that message to influence how you make choices for your well-being or not? But the message is there, and I approach it and I address it with, you know, my clients who are men, because again, men, you're supposed to be tough. You don't even need to be talking about emotions. I address it with women. I address it with a lot of my clients because the stigma against mental health is so strong, but it's changing now.
Mm-hmm. Good feedback. Justin, did you have something else to say?
Or no, I completely agree. Just listening to what voice is that? You know, what voice are you hearing? Are you hearing it from, you know, your parents, you know, the church going folks? Like, where are you hearing that voice from? You know, so, and then really reflecting on that.
Yep, and the person commented that her sister is asking if she needs help, and I think that's what it is. She's ashamed. So hopefully what you guys are sharing speaks to her, and she's able to, you know, help her sister get to the point. How can talking to a professional help with breaking generational curses?
Ruben, I'll let you take the lead on this one. I like what I think you're going to say about it, because it came up in our last one.
So when I hear generational,
and I got this, by the way.
Oh snap, bro! What are the chances?
Hey,
Here
man,
it is.
Like,
I just ordered it too.
yeah.
Post-traumatic stress disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Trauma, wounds that happened to us or we witnessed in our past continuing to affect us in our present. And, you know, I didn't have that language when I was in church, but those are the family curses we talk about, and they can be broken. But I think we got to understand it as trauma, because once you see it as trauma and not, you know, something shameful in my family or something that just affects, you know, Black and brown folks because of our histories. Once you understand that it's just the illness based on your experiences, you can begin to, one, recognize, okay, I'm not crazy. You know, this isn't like an abstract curse where, you know, I have to be a victim to this. You start to recognize, okay, these are symptoms. This is where it's from, the origins, because a lot of times things can be so painful, we push them down. But that doesn't mean they go away. Actually, when we start pushing, have y'all ever tried, I ask my clients this all the time, have you ever tried to push a beach ball underwater to see what happens?
Doesn't work so well.
It comes right back up, and that's how your thoughts and feelings are. So right. I think the process of therapy allows you to, it creates a space where you can explore that and find the origins of that. So we're not pushing the beach ball down, but we're allowing the beach ball to be there and just letting it be there, and then figuring out what else we want to do in the pool, because we don't even got to mess with the beach ball if we don't want to.
So I want to just piggyback on that one. I tell folks the first step to change is awareness, and a therapist can help you with awareness. And the reason why what Ruben was talking about, awareness, is so powerful, because it's the first time it gives you a choice. Okay, there's two choices: a choice to change or a choice to keep it moving and then still get the negative results. And I understand the latter is difficult, you know, change is difficult, but with a therapist by your side, they can help you work through that, and they're there for you. Going to a therapist and just getting awareness of what's going on is just so incredible and so powerful.
Awesome. I had to take some notes there, guys, so I apologize. Y'all are spitting some great information.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, you both have the book. You have it for a reason, right?
Well, somebody asked the question in the chat, so I was showing it. It's Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome by Joy DeGruy.
Yeah.
She got some videos online. Strap in. Strap in.
Very nice. Thank you. Can you define how to identify depression in African Americans, as well as how to assist the person on this journey?
Okay. So the number, or I guess the number one starting point, and Ruben brought this up earlier, is just looking at your eating habits and sleeping habits. That's one of the things that we start out with, asking folks. You know, if you see, all right, I'm eating too much, or I'm not eating at all, or if I'm not sleeping at all, that might be a start of a red flag that something might be there. And another sign of depression, I'm going to bring this up with in men, that, you know, sometimes isn't brought up as much, is sometimes flipping out and being irritable or anger, you know, could be a sign of potential depression. And just looking at and how long these symptoms last too, you know, the duration of the symptoms is important too. Because people have bad days, but if it's like bad months, then there might be something.
Yes, Brother Justin. Spot on. There's layers to that question, because I think mental illness is a spectrum. It looks different from person to person. One, there's cultural differences too. So I like the question. And I think a lot, I don't even want to say a lot, but it's just interesting how depression manifests specifically in our communities. Like there's a reason, I think there's a reason that we lead all racial groups in preventable diseases. And one of those symptoms is eating, you know, excessive eating. A lot of time, and again, I like eating too, but what sometimes we do is we emotionally eat. So we're feeling sad, we eat. We're feeling bored, we eat. We're feeling depressed, we eat. We're feeling anxious, we eat. So again, cluing in onto what's this eating about? Like how's this person feeling when they're eating? Sleeping too much or too little? You know, folks who say, I got 2 hours of sleep. It's like, okay, how'd your body recover? You know? And if you do that long enough, most people are going to be depressed if they don't get sleep for long enough. That anger was a good one too, Justin. Another one that I want to clue people into, because I didn't have this before I got into psychology, but it's people's energy. Are y'all ever around people and it's like a cloud just follows them? You walk around them and you just start feeling depressed.
Yes.
People who are depressed, they have, and I wish I had my shades on just for dramatic effect, but they have a lens over their eyes that make their thoughts negative about themselves, their thoughts about the other people negative, and their thoughts about the world negative. And that is draining. And so after I got the training, I'm like, dang, this person was probably depressed in my life, you know, and I didn't know it. And so what can you offer those folks? You know, I think in my past, I just wanted to get the hell away from them. Like, I don't want to be around that energy. I remember that. And if you can recognize it as an illness and not take it personal or make it personal about them, you can then start to handle them with compassion. It's like, okay, I notice every time I'm around you, you know, there's always, you're making negative comments. I'm wondering what that's about or how you're feeling, you know? So really creating a space where you can, holding space for somebody, a place where they can just be and express themselves. And then, because that's really what's going to help them, let me say this. That environment, holding space, that compassion, that's going to be one of the first steps to somebody getting support and finding their way out of, I call it the depressive goo, because it's just goo and it sticks on you. And you got to really work hard to take those initial steps. But once you get out of the goo, you're good.
I think that's so key, because I think everybody on the call has probably been around somebody that you just, it like hits you like humidity in Florida, like it just hits you, and their energy just sucks your energy. And I've definitely, personally speaking, have been like, I just need to distance myself. But I probably should have flipped that, listening to you, being like, you know what, maybe they're having, you know, they're going through something. Let me just help them through that. So that's good to know.
And if you're unable to be in tune with the energy level, there's a simple way to figure that out, is just asking someone how they're doing and see how they pay attention to how they respond. Even if they say, okay, you could tell in their nonverbal communication, like, wait a minute, they're not totally okay. Or if they start out with a negative, because too many clients, I get a lot of folks, that are struggling with depression. The first thing out of all my therapy sessions that I start my sessions with, it could be my interns, it could be with my clients. I ask them, what's good? And then they start going into, oh, but I'm like, no. We'll get to that later. Trust me, we have an hour left. We'll get to that. What's good? And then if they have a hard time with it, and I always say this, it doesn't have to be huge. It could have been something, you ate a good meal last week, or somebody smiled at you. You saw a funny show, you heard a joke. That's how I always start my therapy session. So that's something you could do with someone that is struggling, just starting that conversation on the more positive note.
And I want to throw something, tag on, Justin.
Mm-hmm.
Folks who are experiencing depression can sometimes do some interesting things to get their needs met, for validation, for attention. And sometimes it can suck healthy people in. And so, for instance, like, I'm going to kill myself and I don't want you to tell anybody. No, sir. No, ma'am. No, they. That is a tough spot to be in as somebody who wants to help somebody. So when people start talking about killing themselves, any hint, I want to disappear, to me, that's depressive language. And that means a professional needs to get involved. In my opinion, not the pastor, a professional who has training, who can really address the mental health component of this. And I'm sharing that to protect well-meaning people who want to help, but get sucked into trying to rescue a person. And I think it can get messy after that. I hear that all the time. They don't want me to tell anybody. I can't tell anybody. What are you going to do if they kill themselves?
Yeah. No, I think yeah, absolutely. And kind of going back to, Justin kind of evoked a thought in my head. I feel like a lot of times we, just societal niceties, I'm going to call it. And when we see somebody, we just say, how are you doing? And it's very like vanilla. It's not like real oomph. We don't, like there's not. Is there a way to kind of flip that to, for those that are really trying to say like, how are you doing? Like, no, for real, not like, how are you doing? All right, we're moving on. Is there like a better way to phrase that?
I think like Ruben was saying, just for us, being willing to hold space, because we're go, go, go. The only reason we're just say, hey, how you doing? Okay. Right. And then we just keep it moving.
Exactly.
But I would say maybe ask more closed-ended questions rather than open-ended questions, and saying like, hey, what happened to you this morning? How's your morning going? Or how's your afternoon? You're talking to this person during lunch. How was your lunch? Or something like that. Just be more directed.
And I think what you said, how are you really doing? Or how are you doing as a human? Those are some of my go-tos to break that kind of pass and go check-in.
Right. No, that's good. Good. I like that.
And can I throw one more thing in there?
Of course.
And be ready for what people share. Because oftentimes people might be trying to be vulnerable and you're like, I ain't really want to know what's up. So be honest with yourself. Are you really in the space to hold space for a human, or are you just faking the funk? Which is okay, because there's some times where I'm with my coworkers, I really don't need to know everything. So it's a quick check-in. There are other times where I'm concerned, where it's like, all right, I really want to know. So that's what I want to throw on there.
No, that's a good point. Good point.
Yeah, and then understanding, what type of relationship you have with this person too, and depending on how close you are or how much often you see somebody, like if it's a coworker, you could even comment on their nonverbals. Hey, I noticed you didn't get your coffee today, or you're not smiling this morning. Usually you're like happy-go-lucky. Is there something going on, and just you could comment on that also to open the conversation. But just like Ruben said, just being ready and prepared.
Definitely. Good. I love that. So let me flip back up to this question. It's a really great question. One I've actually have had many discussions with my husband over our 1-year-old, being in a biracial household. So this person's asking, how do you feel about children being enrolled in schools where teachers and children with other children that may not look like them? Do you see any? Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah.
So I used to be like, kids. Oh, this is such a tough question because it's so complex and big. But the world is coming for your kids, right? And so the fact, and I don't have kids, so let me just preface. I don't know, but I am interested in parenting. Because as somebody who's interested in diversity and social justice work, childhood is where you get programmed with a lot of the things: racism, sexism, classism, all the isms. So it behooves me to be curious about children. So kids are going to get exposed. School is a place where they get socialized. And so for better or worse, whether you're in mixed environments or all your culture environments, there are going to be messages that they learn. And so I think it's a matter of understanding what those messages are and how they serve said child and or how they don't serve said child. So I went to school with a lot of white folks. It was helpful in the sense that I started to understand how white folks how they acted as a group and how I could kind of like create that double consciousness. All right, I know what white culture is like. I know what black culture is like. And I know how to play both games. Some of my clients who went to all black schools in Atlanta, they got to like predominantly white spaces, like predominantly white institutions, colleges, and they were afraid of white people. And through supervision, it hit me. It was like, oh, they never were exposed. But what they did do is they got a firm grounding in their black identity, which I had to, and I continue to explore, so there's pros and cons with both scenarios. And I think it's, all scenarios. And it's just a matter of teasing them apart, I think, for your unique situation.
And I agree with everything Ruben said. I think it is important to let parents know the world is coming for your kid. You could protect them only so much. But the important thing, your role as a parent, you're your child's first teacher. And just creating that space on when those situations come up on how to teach your kids about them, and how to navigate those worlds and things like that. So.
You can't tell this mama the world's coming for her baby. Come on.
Sorry. All right.
So more questions here. As a Black man, I noticed over the years, I have not truly cried in years, and I just feel numb, and even at funerals of loved ones with no emotions. I am concerned and not sure if this is normal.
Yeah. So I think crying is powerful, and I was talking to a buddy of mine, of being men. When Ruben brought this up earlier of this idea of masculinity, it could be a sign of weakness if you cry. And as men, we think, oh yeah, there's appropriate times to cry. When I cried, I bawled like crazy at my wedding. Nobody would give me a hard time for that. But if I cry about something else, there might be some embarrassment or something around there. I think with the beach ball thing Ruben said, letting those things out is just so important and therapeutic for people. And I've worked with some men that try to figure out those appropriate ways to cry. They may listen to sad music, so they could justify and give themselves a reason. Oh, it's okay to cry now, but even though they've been holding on to this for so long. So.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of power in the vulnerability of you just sharing that in the chat with us. So thank you for that gift. I think that's a beautiful start. And there's awareness that something's off by you just asking that question. And so the invitation is to lean into whatever you're running from. Whether it's racial trauma, whether it's abuse. And if you can't do that on your own through journaling and other self-help methods, come find you a therapist you connect with, whether they look like us or not. Because I used to think all skin folks are going to be able to serve you. That's not the case. Many times it is the case. Not always. But yeah, find you a therapist that fits and where you feel comfortable, connected, understood, and you can be vulnerable to get that out. Because y'all remember 2 liters? You remember what happens when you shake a 2 liter and it opens up? The pressure builds, and if you open up, and oftentimes, especially as men, Black men, we are ticking time bombs because we don't express ourselves. And so we got to peel back the layers, and therapy helps. But what's the last point I want to make about this? Because I don't want to keep going on and on. We gotta do the healing work, and it means slowly finding ways to open up that bottle to take steam up until you can open it and then pour the contents.
And just from personal experience, because I service, I see a lot of Black men in my practice, I think it's so important that piece Ruben just said, finding somebody that is a safe space and you're vulnerable with. Because there's times in my office, there's got these guys that will just cry, just because and they would say to me, they've never done that before, and I think the first step is they feel safe enough and vulnerable enough in that space, and it just kind of came out. And that's part of the important pieces. That's part of the healing process, so.
And just to break the mold, I average like 2 or 3 real droopy, snotty cries every year, and I always feel better after them.
Good. So I think along the same lines, we have a question. I find that none of the Black males in my family and many of my Black male friends have never gone to a therapist. How do we dispel the stigma to get more of them to seek professional help or go see a therapist? And I think both of you touched on this earlier, but I'm not sure if you have more to add to this.
Yeah, I think I'm just talking with experience, is just talking about it. And if if you're taking the first step yourself, the most gratifying thing of doing this work is not getting paid for it, but when guys tell me, yo, man, I'm so open with seeing you. I tell everybody, I'll say, yo, I got an appointment with my therapist later, and that's the empowering piece. So taking that step of prioritizing your own mental health and just being upfront about it. Because I've seen a therapist, I've seen a therapist for years on and off. So just being open and talking about it helps bring down that stigma.
Awesome. What he said. Awesome. So do therapists accept insurance?
Some do, some don't. I work at the counseling center, so the students can be seen for free because of their health fee. It's not really for free; it's their health fee, but.
And people that work for companies, something to add, outside of insurance, they have what they call EAP plans, and they're employee assistance plans. And sometimes if your company offers this, you get free sessions. Sometimes I've seen it anywhere from 3 to like 10. And every company has it, the city companies or the cities, I have clients from Raymond James and things like that. So just check if your company offers that. School districts, wherever you work.
Yeah, and I could just tag on from a HR role that I have. Check in with your carriers for your insurance. If you have insurance for your organization, look at what your card says, that company, if it's Cigna, United, whatever it is, go out to their website and look for some type of mental health professionals, and you'll be able to see if it's covered by your insurance.
And something interesting with insurance companies with COVID, some companies based on your plan are offering free telehealth sessions right now. So definitely call your provider and check what your benefits are.
If you don't have insurance, there are providers who will use a sliding scale based on your income, or sometimes just based on your need, where you can pay a reduced fee. So there's a mental health services are inaccessible in many instances, but not in all.
Yeah.
All right, so we got about 8 minutes left. So how do you, either of you, feel about counseling the opposite sex?
I think more for me is I don't mind it. It's more about the pain point. You know, like, am I qualified, or do I have the skill set to help with the pain point? For instance, I don't have much knowledge about like postpartum depression or things like that. So I would probably refer out on those cases. But I don't, I have tons of women that I see.
I love working with women because in many of my instances working with women, they seem more ready to do the work. I think they're, the way society has socialized women, they're usually a bit more in tune with their emotions than men. So I enjoy the work with women.
Awesome. We're getting a lot of comments that you guys should definitely do your podcast. Just so next question, can you have PTSD from being a cancer survivor, especially when you were told you have a 30% chance to live and you made it through your treatment? So first of all, congratulations to that.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I don't want to give professional advice across this platform, but anything is possible.
And I would just encourage that person to reach out to a mental health professional to be assessed and to see.
Awesome. Ruben, somebody wants to know where you get your shirt from.
Oh, I got this in Rwanda. So when the COVID ban's over, go to Rwanda and you can get you one like this. They call it a gatinge.
That's what I'm talking about.
I love it.
Love it. Do you have plans to talk about this issue, and I don't remember what issue they were referring to, with young Black children? So I don't know if we were talking about a certain topic at a certain point, but if that person who asked that anonymous question just give me a, but I'll go to the next question so we can get clarity. How do we get, oh, go ahead. Yep.
I don't know all the question, but I don't know if maybe this helps. I'm into finding ways to invite kids, children, young adults into the real world. And, I've seen it like with some folks I know where when you talk to your kids got more wisdom than I think we give them credit for as adults. I think a lot of adults want to protect kids when kids are very resilient. And that's not to say we abuse them, neglect them. We push past this threshold of helpfulness, but it's helpful for kids to know about racism. It's helpful for kids to know about sexism because they're going to experience it and see it. And so the more you talk to them about it, the more they recognize it and they interact with it differently than just the shock value of, oh, this is the world. So I lean on the side of inviting kids in.
Justin, you guys.
And just the important piece of that, and for parents out there, just don't think you have to be perfect or have the perfect answer. Just engaging your child and just being there, present, and having a conversation, and just being okay with, hey, I don't know all the answers, and just having that space for kids that if they have questions or going through stuff, they can go to you. Because the worst thing that I see is if that space isn't there and you grow up and then they have issues later on and they're not going there, then they may turn to other stuff. So just keeping that space and that safe space with your child.
Yep, and the person was able to clarify, and I think you guys hit it, is that by issue meaning how the world will embrace or reject them due to their race or ethnicity. So awesome. So next one, let me check our time. How do we get the Black community to understand the true role of a caregiver? I am taking care of a loved one, but it seems my family thinks it is what I'm supposed to do, which I don't mind, but I feel like I'm losing myself and feel guilty about even bringing it up. Might have to put that book in the chat.
Nonviolent communication. So first off, that sounds like, again, it's getting into territory where it might be helpful to talk to somebody one-on-one to really flush out all the points. But I'm a believer in connection through communication, communication that is compassionate. And so if you're feeling real feelings, how can you share those honestly? And do you know what your needs are? Like, because a lot of times we don't even know what we need. Do you want to be in that role? Do you not want to be in that role? Are you taking care of yourself? So really considering what you need and making requests based off that need. But this is a good starting place for yourself or a professional.
I agree.
Good answer. So we are right at the 2-minute mark, and I'd like to thank everyone for all their engaging questions and for being present and using this time as productive as we did. We were able to cover a lot of ground here. And I know they're putting information in the chat. So I'd love to open it to our wonderful panelists to, say if you have any closing thoughts or just anything you want to, leave the team with.
I love these events. I was just very thankful to be a part of it. And just remember, the one thing that you can do is just, put on your mask and to be present for other people, and all it takes is just, just holding space.
So everything Justin said, I co-sign all his messages. A couple things. One, put your mask on, take care of yourself first. And it's not selfish. It's because you can help other people better when you do it. What Justin said. And y'all remember The Prince of Egypt, that movie? I mean, it's old. But, there was a song Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey did, When You Believe. There's a line I love. They say, when hope is frail, though hope is frail, what is it? Though hope is frail, it's hard to kill. Right now, our communities, so many people are feeling powerless, hopelessness, despair, rage, anger. And I want to remind people that people of color, Black folks, Africans, we did not get here on accident. We have a history of being hopeful and transforming the world. So I hope that folks will tap into who their ancestors are and how they've helped revitalize humanity and keep hope alive.
I love it. I love it. Well, on behalf of USF Black Alumni Society in partnership with Moffitt Cancer Center, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you again to our amazing panelists, and we hope to see you guys on the other side with a fresh podcast. Just saying, throwing it out there. Bye, everyone.
Blessings.